When I moved to Willow Creek subdivision, I was searching for peace, quiet, and a mortgage I wouldn't have to sell an organ for. Instead, I got Carol. Technically, her name is Karen, but Carol sounds less like an internet cliche and more like someone who wouldn't take a photo of your recycling bin to report that you violated HOA Waste Disposal Protocol 6.3, which she did. Twice. I had escaped city noise, sirens, and late-night drunk karaoke for the American dream, birdsong, trimmed hedges, and neighbors who mind their own business. But no, I traded chaos for suburban tyranny and yoga pants and a rules exist for a reason bumper sticker on a Prius. The very first day I moved in, Karen descended upon me like a harpy in Crocs. I was unloading boxes when she introduced herself by informing me that my mailbox was half an inch too far from the curb. Then she handed me a laminated copy of the HOA bylaws, signed with flair and Comic Sans. I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Over the next few weeks, I got a crash course in suburban compliance boot camp, led by Commandant Karen herself. She had a clipboard, a real one. She wore it like armor. Patrolling the street like a one-woman code enforcement squad, she took pictures of grass that dared to grow a fraction of an inch past regulation height. I once got a friendly reminder that my front yard gnome lacked neighborhood thematic consistency. Translation: Karen didn't like it. She also accused me of harboring non-standard wind chimes. Wind chimes. And don't even get me started on the trash bins. One Tuesday, I came home from work to find a handwritten citation duct taped to my bin, placed at curbside 4 minutes before 6 p.m. HOA rules clearly state, no earlier than 6 p.m. on the DOT. 4 minutes. It wasn't just me, either. My neighbor Alex got a formal complaint for having decorative pumpkins on his porch. It was November. The woman treated HOA rules the way medieval inquisitors treated heresy. I tried being polite. I really did. But when she started leaving anonymous notes about the suspicious frequency of my Amazon deliveries, I began to suspect she kept a logbook, like some sort of postal peeping Tom. Then came the drone. Yes, Karen had a drone. She used it for neighborhood surveillance, which was her way of saying she hovered it over backyards to check for illegal patio furniture or rogue hammocks. It buzzed outside my window one Sunday morning while I was eating cereal in my bathrobe. I waved at it. It hovered. I closed the blinds. The next day, I got a note in my mailbox. Please refrain from gestures that could be interpreted as threatening. This is a family neighborhood. I had waved. That's when I realized Karen didn't want neighbors. She wanted subjects. The turning point came on a Tuesday. Always a Tuesday with her. I had ordered a new grill, nothing fancy, just something that could cook meat without setting off the smoke alarm. It was delivered in a big box, which I left on my porch because work, life, exhaustion. By 2:47 p.m., there was a picture of it on the neighborhood Facebook group captioned, "Does anyone else think this unattended package poses a safety concern?" Asking for accountability, not drama. The post had 17 likes, all from women with short hairstyles and strong opinions. That's when I snapped. Not outwardly. No shouting, no confrontation. Just a quiet little idea that slithered into my brain and curled up like a cat. If Karen wanted to play this game, I'd play. But I'd use the one weapon she couldn't control, humor. It started with a sketch. A little doodle during a Zoom meeting, stick figures, and overly expressive eyebrows. I drew Karen, not Karen, just a generic, clipboard-wielding figure in a t-shirt that said Citizen of the Month. Next to her, a window with binoculars sticking out of it, labeled, "Not spying if it's for safety." Then another, a flowchart titled, "How to Mind Your Own Business." The first box was "See Something Mildly Annoying." The second box was "Do Nothing." The end. It spiraled. Fast. Before I knew it, I had a 16-page booklet, fully illustrated, modeled after an IKEA manual, minimalist drawings, clean lines, and those cheerful little figures doing exactly what Karen hated, living their lives unmonitored. Some titles included, "How to Avoid Creeping Around Your Neighbor's Driveway After Dark," "Package Counting is Not a Sport," "Decorative Pumpkins and the Apocalypse, a Non-Existent Correlation," "Binoculars Are Not a Personality," There was even a checklist. Don't photograph children at the playground. Don't measure grass with a ruler. Don't knock on someone's door because their Halloween lights are still up on November 2nd. Don't be a Karen. The final page? An illustration of a smug-looking woman with a pixie cut, arms crossed, beneath the heading. How not to be this person. Sure, the cartoon was technically generic, but everyone who'd ever seen Karen at an HOA meeting would have recognized that expression. Printing was easy. I knew a guy. I printed 75 copies, stapled and folded like legit homeowner education material. Slid them into mailboxes at night, like some sort of petty Santa Claus. Each copy came with a note. Just a little neighborhood humor. Hope it brings a smile. Or, perspective. And then I waited. Oh, how I waited. Because if there's one thing Karen hated more than gnomes, grass, or off-brand Halloween decor, it was being laughed at. It didn't take long. By morning, the neighborhood group chat, because of course we had one, exploded like a glitter bomb in a preschool. My phone buzzed nonstop. Someone even posted a picture of the pamphlet next to their morning coffee with the caption, "Whoever made this, I owe you a beer." Or 5. A few folks weren't sure if it was satire or a leaked HOA training manual. That was the beauty of it. It walked the razor-thin line between plausible and petty. And right there, tap dancing across that line, was Karen. When the sun came up, so did the sound of high-speed flip-flops slapping against pavement. I peeked out my blinds, purely for research purposes, and saw her storming down the street, holding one of the booklets like it was a court summons. She made it about halfway before confronting Mrs. Flanders, the sweet 70-year-old who once left muffins on my porch. Karen practically hissed, "Did you put these in the mailboxes?" Mrs. Flanders blinked. "What? Oh no, dear. But I think they're lovely." That one about binoculars was a hoot. Karen looked like she'd just tasted a lemon wrapped in betrayal. From my spot behind the blinds, I took a sip of coffee and savored the unraveling. But somehow she found out that it was me. By noon, I had an official violation warning taped to my door. It cited distribution of unauthorized materials within HOA boundaries. I framed it. And just to be safe, I emailed the HOA legal rep, a board paralegal named Seth who seemed to survive on LaCroix and resentment. His response: "As long as no one is being directly named and you're not profiting from the materials, there's no legal issue. Also, can I get a copy?" Asking for a friend. I printed him too. Karen, naturally, wasn't satisfied with just attempting a fine. She ramped up the Karenosity to DEFCON 1. The next day, she tried to introduce a new HOA policy at the monthly meeting. Distribution of parody, satirical, or derogatory materials deemed harmful to the emotional well-being of community members. I kid you not, that was the actual title. It died on the table before anyone could even vote. Mr. Chun, who usually stayed silent and only showed up for the free donuts, muttered, "It's a free country, Karen," which might as well have been the Gettysburg Address because the room roared. Karen looked around, stunned, like a stage actor who just realized the audience is booing. The week that followed, glorious. People started sharing the booklet online. Someone even made a meme of the illustration. Karen's doppelganger squinting through blinds with the caption, "Neighborhood Watch Level, NSA." One family down the street taped page 7 to their mailbox, the one labeled, "Mind Your Mail. It's not a game show." Karen tried everything. She tried issuing mass warnings, which were ignored. She tried calling a special meeting, nobody came. She even tried reporting me for mail tampering. When the local post office laughed her out the door, she snapped. Fully, completely, and publicly. She posted a 5-paragraph meltdown on the neighborhood Facebook page. "I have dedicated years to keeping this community safe, clean, and rule-abiding. This isn't a joke, it's harassment. You people don't understand the sacrifices I've made." The replies were brutal. Nancy from Elm Street commented, "Karen, sweetie, it's not a sacrifice if nobody asked you." Even her inner circle, the clipboard coalition as I called them, started backing away. Carol with a C unfriended her. Beverly changed her profile pic to a laughing emoji. It was like watching a reality TV contestant realize, in real time, that they were the villain of the season. 3 days later, I got a knock on my door. It wasn't Karen. It was George. Now, George was her co-chair on the HOA board, the guy who used to echo everything she said like a human parrot. He stood there, nervously holding a clipboard like it might deflect bullets. "Look, off the record," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "This is hilarious. Like, actually brilliant. But she's lost it, man. She's threatening to sue the HOA. She thinks you're orchestrating a coup." I smiled. "Technically, it's a comedic intervention." He laughed, then sighed. "We're holding an emergency vote. To, well, remove her. We've had enough." I didn't say much, just nodded. And somewhere, faintly, I heard the sound of poetic justice inflating like a bouncy castle. The HOA board meeting that night was less emergency session and more public execution. But, you know, with name tags and Costco cookies. Karen showed up 10 minutes early, clipboard in hand, hair helmeted into submission, wearing a shirt that simply said "Structure brings peace." She took her usual seat at the front, flanked by two folding chairs that used to be filled by her loyal sidekicks, Carol and Beverly. Tonight, they were empty. George cleared his throat and stood up, visibly sweating. "So, first item on the agenda. We're, voting on the removal of Karen from the HOA chair position." You could have heard a pin drop. Then someone dropped their cookie. "Close enough." Karen leaned forward, squinting. "Excuse me, but I don't think this is procedurally valid. According to Article 12b, subsection A." George, bless his passive-aggressive soul, interrupted with, "We looked it up, Karen. It's valid." It was double-checked. From the back of the room, someone whispered, "Triple-checked." A pause. Then George asked, "All in favor of removal?" Hands shot up. Every single one. Even Larry, who normally avoided conflict like it was gluten, raised his high and proud. Karen looked around like she was on the Titanic, refusing to admit the water was ankle-deep. "This is outrageous. I've served this community with diligence." "No, you served yourself a dictatorship on a platter and called it community service," someone muttered. "Might have been Alex. Might have been me." She stood. "I will be consulting legal counsel." "You do that," George said with a nod. Meeting adjourned. Over the next 48 hours, Karen went very quiet. No patrols. No Facebook rants. No laminated notices mysteriously appearing on doorknobs in the dead of night. It was like the eye of Sauron had blinked. Then, on Saturday morning, a moving truck pulled into her driveway. People stopped mid-mo to stare. Even the dogs barked in stunned disbelief. Karen, dressed in full workout gear, though she was clearly not working out, stomped around directing the movers like a general with a vendetta. She didn't acknowledge anyone. Not even Mr. Jenkins, who stood outside sipping iced tea like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. And then she was gone. The idea of a neighborhood celebration started as a joke in the group chat. But by 3 p.m., Alex had pulled out his speaker system, the Smith kids set up a bouncy house, and Mrs. Flanders made her legendary punch. The one with just a whisper of vodka. A very loud whisper. By sunset, the street was lit up. People were dancing on their lawns. Grill smoke curled into the air like incense offered to the gods of petty vengeance. Someone put up a banner that said, "The Wicked Witch has moved," and I have no idea who made it, but they had excellent font taste. Then someone handed me a microphone. I tried to protest, but they chanted. Speech. 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 So I cleared my throat, stood up on a lawn chair, and addressed the good citizens of Willow Creek. Friends, neighbors, survivors of HOA Rule Number 873, no unapproved seasonal wreaths. Tonight, we celebrate freedom, not just from one woman's wrath, but from the iron grip of passive-aggressive door notes and unsolicited drone surveillance. Laughter. Claps. Someone hooped. We've endured much. We've been fined for garbage bins, judged for yard flamingos, and emotionally scarred by Comic Sans on official documents. But we endured. We adapted. We got creative. At this, I raised a copy of the IKEA-style booklet high in the air like it was the Constitution. And now, as you're voluntarily elected, but also kind of ambushed into it, new HOA chair. Cheers. Groans. Someone shouted, "We believe in you." which felt uncomfortably sincere. I present to you the revised Willow Creek HOA Charter. Please turn to the only page. I flipped the giant foam board behind me. In bold text. 1. Don't be a jerk. 2. Mind your own business. 3. Be cool. Seriously, that's it. 4. No drones. Ever. 5. Don't be like Karen. All in favor. I called out. A sea of hands flew up. Even the Smith family's dog barked. Close enough. Motion passed. We party. And we did. Oh, how we did. Much later, as the music faded and the fairy lights flickered, I stepped away from the crowd, sitting on the curb with a paper plate of brownie crumbs and freedom, watching everyone laugh, dance, and for once, relax. Because the thing about people like Karen, you can't argue them out of their nonsense. You can't logic it away. But sometimes, if you're lucky, all it takes is a little humor, a few illustrations, and a community just desperate enough for peace to say, yeah, we're done here. You'd think that after toppling a suburban regime built on fines and fear, the high would wear off. It didn't. Not for weeks. The very next morning after the party, I opened my front door to find someone had anonymously gifted me a mug that said, HOA, Humor Over Authority. I knew immediately who it was. Beverly, the one-time lieutenant in Karen's army, now proudly sporting tie-dye and growing suspiciously illegal wildflowers in her front garden. The power shift had begun, and, against every expectation, including my own, I leaned into the new role. Because why not? I was already the guy who made the pamphlet. Might as well be the guy who turned the HOA into something that doesn't suck. First order of business? We nuked the old rulebook. Not literally. Although I did ceremoniously drop a copy into a backyard fire pit while the neighbors cheered. Second order? Replace it with something that people could actually read without getting a nosebleed. We drafted a new charter. Real minimalist stuff. Bold font. Bullet points. The opposite of Karen's 78-page novella of lawn tyranny. Here's a taste. No spying. If you can see it from your kitchen with binoculars, maybe it's you who needs adjusting. Don't report Halloween decorations before November 10th. Yes, we're giving grace days. We're not monsters. Grass has feelings too. Let it live. Your dog barking at 3 a.m. is annoying. You know it. Fix it. No HOA business before coffee. We're not animals. We had a vote. Real casual, lawn chairs and lemonade. Unanimous approval. One guy was so moved, he tried to hug me, tripped on a sprinkler head, and landed in the bushes. Still counts. Then came the Karen cleanse. Not a literal one. Although someone did sage the community center. Again, probably Beverly. We removed all of Karen's policies. That included the no hanging towels on balcony railings rule, the only beige curtains visible from the street clause, and the infamous monthly aesthetic evaluations, where Karen gave your house a score out of 10 like some kind of suburban Simon Cowell. Now, instead of monthly inspections, we had monthly potlucks. Instead of tattling, we had community game nights. Instead of watching each other, we watched Netflix. Together, Mr. Jenkins started wearing Hawaiian shirts. Mrs. Flanders got a Bluetooth speaker and started blasting 80s rock during her morning walks. Even the Smith kids started a lemonade stand. Unlicensed, of course, and nobody said a damn word. The entire vibe of the neighborhood shifted from Stepford Wives Meet the DMV to lightly chaotic retirement village with good snacks. But perhaps the greatest twist in this story? The way the neighborhood itself started using humor as the official language of communication. Lost dog flyers now had headlines like, "Help! My escape artist has struck again," with pictures of guilty-looking poodles. HOA notices started ending with P.S. Don't be like Karen. We even made a fake parking ticket template that said, "You've been parked like a doofus. This is not a real fine, but consider trying again. Love, the HOA," and smiley face. We slid one under George's windshield when he blocked 2 driveways during a bake sale. He laughed so hard he choked on a snickerdoodle. Then came the letter. It arrived in an actual envelope. No return address. But the handwriting was unmistakable, overly loopy, aggressive slant, the way only someone trying to intimidate via cursive could manage. To whom it may concern. I trust the neighborhood has enjoyed its descent into lawlessness and mediocrity. You may think you've won, but one day, you'll look around and realize what you've lost: order, discipline, and structure. The day you beg me to return, I will not answer. Regards, Karen M. I laughed so hard I almost dropped my coffee. I posted a redacted version of it in the group chat. We printed copies and made a dramatic reading of it at the next block party, complete with violin music and George wearing a Dollar Tree tiara. That night we debuted a new lawn sign. Lawless and loving it. Karen free since April. It sold out in 48 hours. But for all the jokes, all the revenge, and all the homemade flyers and lawn signs, the truth was, Karen had left something behind. Not fear, not control, but unity. Because nothing bonds a community like surviving shared nonsense. We had been ruled by absurdity, and we answered with creativity. And now, we were no longer just neighbors. We were co-conspirators in the world's most polite rebellion. And weirdly enough, I owed Karen for that. Just don't tell her. Ever. It's funny. People think that when a Karen leaves the neighborhood, peace just descends like glitter from the sky. But in reality, the absence of one tyrant just reveals what the neighborhood was really made of. And ours? We turned out to be a whole bunch of weirdos who just needed permission to laugh again. 3 months after the great Karen exodus, the HOA looked different. Our meetings now took place in the park, under string lights, with folding tables full of cookies and 0 clipboards of doom. People actually wanted to come. Not because of threats, because of snacks. Which, honestly, is the only legitimate reason to attend any HOA meeting. Ever. We had committee names like the Chill Landscaping Crew and the Party Planners, formerly known as the Resistance. I even got roped into officiating a dog wedding. That's not a joke. 2 golden retrievers named Mr. Pickles and Lady Barkington exchanged collars under a makeshift arbor while the neighborhood kids threw milk bones like confetti. The people had spoken. Less bylaws, more bow wows. Then, one fine Sunday afternoon, clear skies, slight breeze, and the faint scent of someone grilling ribs, I got an email. Subject line: Are you still the one in charge? It was from Seth, our long-suffering HOA legal guy. Still very much alive. Still very much fueled by LaCroix and disdain. His message: FYI, Karen's property sold. New owners moving in next week. Buyer info redacted per privacy policy, but, heads up, might want to send them the updated HOA materials. I stared at the screen, then slowly smiled. By Wednesday, the plan was in motion. I printed off a fresh copy of How to Be a Good Neighbor, a visual guide, the same infamous IKEA-style booklet, now with added pages, thanks to community submissions. Some highlights: a stick figure returning a borrowed leaf blower and receiving a high five. How to host a party without becoming a public menace. A drawing of a gnome holding up a sign. I am legal now. Deal with it. And a new final page. A hand-drawn, triumphant woman sitting in a lawn chair, watching kids play, surrounded by flowers, and a big red stamp that read, Retired. We included a small welcome basket with baked goods, a dog toy, just in case, and a bumper sticker that said, I survived an HOA coup and all I got was this sense of freedom. The new neighbors? A lovely young couple. Quiet. Friendly. One of them has purple hair and builds birdhouses as a hobby. The other runs an Etsy shop that only sells custom doormats with passive-aggressive sayings like, If you're here to sell something, my dogs bite. If you're here to hang out, bring snacks. They laughed at the booklet. Said it was the best HOA introduction they'd ever seen. And just like that, life went on. No drones. No fines. Just porch lights, shared dinners, and one occasionally overcooked barbecue hosted by yours truly. One night, I found myself back on the curb, in the same spot I sat during that post-Karen party. Same view. Same cracked sidewalk. Same cup of Mrs. Flanders punch, still somehow stronger than legally acceptable. I watched as kids biked down the street. The Jenkins family played cornhole in their driveway, and someone's playlist drifted through the air with faint notes of Fleetwood Mac. And I thought, Karen tried to build an empire of order, but it collapsed under the weight of its own absurdity. I built a joke, and somehow, it became a foundation. So here's what I learned. You don't always need to scream louder than the tyrants. You don't always need to fight fire with fire. Sometimes, all it takes is a cartoon, a sense of humor, and just enough pettiness to print it on glossy paper. Because nothing burns a control freak more than knowing they were outwitted, outvoted, and ultimately out-memed. We didn't just survive Karen. We grew stronger, sillier, and way more fun. And if that's not justice, I don't know what is. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.